Welcome to the NewTubers Podcast, the premier small YouTuber community, helping up-and-coming channels improve through critiques, feedback, and cooperation. We teach you how to start, build, and sustain your YouTube career. Now, without further ado, let's begin the show!
Hello, NewTubers! Today I'm here with another episode of our YouTuber interview series, and this time I'm joined by my co-host, James from Stuff We Play. Go ahead and say hi, James.
Oh, hey all.
And today our special guest is a YouTuber nearing 50,000 subscribers. By the time this goes up, I think he'll be at that 50,000 subscriber milestone, so I want to be the first to congratulate Game Dave.
Oh, thank you. We'll see. I don't know.
Yeah, you never know with YouTube. So how's it going?
Pretty well. How are you boys doing?
I'm good.
I'm doing pretty good.
So, the reason I brought you here is twofold, actually. First off, James was the first person to introduce me to your channel, and second off, I think you're one of the highest production quality, channels I've seen on YouTube, especially for your subscriber count. We'll dive into this more later, but I was really impressed that, you should have way more subscribers than you do, and everyone says that.
Yeah, you sound like my comment section.
Yeah. Everyone says that when they see a channel where they're like, wow, this is really good. Why aren't you bigger? But
yeah.
I
see that more and more. It's like the higher the production value, it seems like there's less growth.
Yeah, there's a thing I've noticed with that. The more work you put in, the less it works out for you, and then you just crap out a video and you get 6,000 subscribers from it or whatever.
Yeah, sometimes.
So let's dive into your main content first. So you're sort of like a game review on-camera channel, but you can pitch it a lot better than I can. So go ahead and explain to us.
Yeah, this is an it's always a tough thing to answer because, on the forefront you would say, oh, it's a gaming channel. But if I were to really break it down, I'd probably say that I'm an entertainer on the internet that happens to focus on games. Now, I'd be fine with kind of talking about other things and doing other shows, but gaming is something that's really important to me, and that is kind of where YouTube started, where it was, you talking about what was important to you.
Right.
And, eventually I realized, why I should just be talking about video games, because it's such a huge hobby for me. It's always been a part of my life, and combining that with, I like performing and entertaining and doing things like that, so kind of combining that with gaming sort of created Game Dave. And I would say there's reviews, there's talk shows, there's weird gaming influenced storylines, skits, and series. So it's kind of all over the place, but yeah, at its core, it's definitely part of the gaming community.
Awesome. Now, I know you've mentioned, we'll dive right into this, that this wasn't actually your first channel.
No, it was not.
That's a trend that I always like to point out with these interviews, is that no matter what, pretty much everybody had a channel before their main channel. And that's true for a lot of NewTubers as well, where they make a channel and it doesn't work out, and then the one they really want to do, they finally get started, and either that works out or it takes a little while to get there, obviously. So tell us a little bit about your first channel.
So I recall being at college, and I think I was still a freshman. I think I was a second semester freshman. And a friend of mine showed me this YouTube thing. And this is early, so this was like 2006. And, not a lot of people were talking about YouTube. People weren't really surfing YouTube. I think it was almost at that point where YouTube was like a landing page. And you would if you uploaded a video, it would just pop up on the front page, and then eventually it would scroll over to the next video. So we're talking YouTube dark ages is what we're getting into. And I had this old Lego stop motion film that I made in high school called The Kingdom. And this, my buddy told me about this YouTube thing, so I just made an account. And back then, you didn't think of making a YouTube channel. The thought was, oh, I'm making my YouTube account. So it was no different than making an email or an AOL Instant Messenger username. Yeah. I wasn't really thinking, oh, I better get this branding right. I was just making an account, so I used what I used all the time at the time was Dave Dick Dole, which sounds bad, but isn't. For those of you who know, I am a big fan of Suikoden, my favorite game series, and in that game, so we're getting deep. You asked me a very deep lore question, so we'll see you in an hour. But so that username came from the way that you would name your characters in the game. So in the first game, you can name the hero. I always name the hero Dave, because that's my name. And then in the second game, you could import the data from the first game, and any returning characters would have like additional stats and abilities and items might stay on their character that were in the old game. And the original hero from the first game could be found in the second game if you loaded your data. And it would transfer the name you used to that character. But there was an error in the coding, and this glitch was never fixed. So it wouldn't replace the entire name. It would take the character's last name, which was McDole, and replace the first letter, which was capitalized, with that letter. I named the character Dave. Therefore, when I found it, I was like, oh my gosh, it's the hero from the first Suikoden game. Dick Dole. Okay. So it sort of became this joke. So my username ended up being Dave Dick Dole everywhere I went. And so what a great start for my YouTube channel branding. So I uploaded this stop motion video, and I didn't really think anything of it. It wasn't about views or whatever. I was like, oh, I can post my video on the internet? Oh, that's kind of cool. And then I just sort of forgot about it. And then in the future, I revisited it, and I started doing some other videos. And I was sort of that classic old school YouTuber case where I was just uploading videos to share with my friends at college, and because I went to college down south for a year, and I live in Delaware, so I was posting these videos on the YouTube account so that people down south could see them. And then other people started watching them that weren't my friends, and that's when I started to realize, oh, this is building an audience. Now what? So that's sort of where I got started.
Okay. So around what time would you say you sort of abandoned that project?
So I did that channel for like 7 years.
Okay.
And
Wow.
I think I reached about 1,400 to 1,500 subscribers at its peak, which is not very impressive for 7 years. But it was that classic issue of it was a random variety channels. And variety channels, it's very difficult if you don't hone in on something to find a community. So I was doing random skits and comedy short films and action things and stop motion animations. I did a 48-minute Lego Batman stop motion animation.
Wow.
When the very first Lego Batman Lego sets came out, it wasn't really, the stop motion Lego thing hadn't really blown up yet on YouTube, because there was an era where that was major.
Yeah.
There wasn't, the Lego games weren't really as I mean, they were there, but there weren't Lego movies like there are now. And so I put that out, and it was shortly before the whole copyright thing started to happen. And of course, I had to use the Danny Elfman score, because it ain't Batman without Danny Elfman's music. Not thinking down the road that would become an issue. And then that was the era where YouTube, they wouldn't flag it and take all the money. They would mute the audio of the entire video. That's what they used to do.
Yeah.
So I had this stop motion animation that was completely muted, so I ended up taking it down. And so I was all over the place. So it was hard to build a community. And then in 2013, I had kind of stopped making videos for a while, and I'd always been into gaming. I'd even talked about gaming on the old channel. I even did Game Dave videos on that old channel as like a test, because I was like, I wonder if I could just do a show about these games I have. And I did a couple of videos, and I was like, this is kind of neat. I should just do a whole series like this. And you know what? Let me just start fresh and finally focus on something. And that's where Game Dave happened in 2013.
Wow.
Awesome. So would you say you officially started Game Dave around then, or was there a little bit of like a gap between them?
Man, we're digging up so many secrets here today, my friends. So when I first started Game Dave in 2013, it was not what it is now. I did a series called Next Game Dave, which is currently not available for watch anywhere. And it was this sort of, I guess it was kind of a Mystery Science Theater-esque sort of show, but it was a little more dramatic, a little more intense. But the very first video that was posted on the channel was this trailer, and it opened up and I was in this dark room with a weird flight suit on and a weird TV in the back wall that was like built into the wall. And this voice was talking to me, and it was forcing me to play video games, and I didn't know why. And that's how the show started. It was a show called Next Game Dave, and it was this series about this guy, Game Dave, that was stuck in this room, and this weird robotic voice kept giving me game challenges to do. And you would sort of reveal, like, am I locked in this room? Who is this voice talking to me? So that's how I started the channel, and then that series led into just sort of a more standard reviews and things like that on the channel. So that's kind of where it started. And it's almost a prequel to the storyline series that I did much later with the talking shelves and everything like that. They actually connect, but I haven't fully given out how they connect.
Ooh, we got secrets.
Yeah, so there you go.
I was going to say that sounded very similar to the idea behind your, I guess we'd call it your main series. And walk us through that main series a little bit, because like I said at the start of the video, this was one of the highest production quality series I've ever seen on YouTube. Like that ending on episode 10, I believe it was, the final episode.
Yes,
specifically.
Big finale.
Yeah, that had to take you at least 24 hours worth of editing. I would be shocked if it took you less.
Yeah, that took like the summer almost to make. I had sort of plotted out this 10-episode arc, and I don't even know. Like, so many people were involved. I had my buddies who do special effects help me out, and I had one of my buddies who he's now a very good friend of mine, but he started as a fan, that had sent me, if you've seen the Family Corner episode on Doremiko.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the keyboard controller that allowed you to do music production on the Famicom. A fan actually reached out and was like, hey, I have the Doremiko keyboard. I could send it to you if you want to borrow it to review it. And I was like, oh, I would love to get my hands on it. It's an expensive thing to get. So he sent it out. I reviewed it. And then just in passing, we were talking, and I found out that he was into music, and he wrote music. And I was like, oh, I'd love to hear your stuff. And I was like, oh, I like this. I'd like to use it in the storyline series. And then we got to talking, and he ended up scoring the last 2 or 3 episodes of the storyline series.
Wow.
With custom music, which was awesome.
Yeah.
So I had him, really cool. And he did some 3D animation stuff, and my buddy Noptop, fellow YouTuber, he does DIY filmmaking. He was involved with Indie Mogul back in the day and Backyard Effects. He did a lot of the shooting for the big final fight scene. He was the camera guy for all of that, and then the big reveal of VR at the end. It was a major project. It took a long time. I was still working at the time, going through the process, and it was insane. So I had to kind of take a break from it. It's not over, but it's going to be a while before I can get the resources together to continue that story.
Yeah. And for anyone who hasn't watched, I don't want to spoil any of the plot or anything, because I genuinely think if you're in this sort of gaming genre, give these episodes a watch. I genuinely think they're some of the best stuff on YouTube. But the ending is just, there's so much, I don't want to call it CG editing, but pretty much CG editing with you have the flying, was it a bat? I forget.
The frog bird.
The frog bird. The frog bird.
Frogverd, the frog bird, yes, from Jackie Chan's Action Kung Fu.
That's right.
When I first played that game, I was like, this is the most ridiculous boss ever. I've got to fight this thing. I've got to fight this thing in real life.
Yeah, and so essentially it's like a 1 to 2 minute just video of him, different shots, different perspectives of the frog bird in 3D fighting Dave. And oh my God, I was blown away, quite literally blown away by it. I was just, wow.
Yeah, it was a lot of late nights on Skype, doing screen shares with another friend of mine, Ryan of Ryan's Video Game Corner, another YouTube guy. He doesn't really do YouTube stuff, but he works in video production, very talented, close friend, and he would just he would just tough it out and be like, all right, can you make me stand in front of the frog for this shot? And he's like, oh, I'm gonna have to cut you out. Oh god. So it was also like, I do some of the effects, but he really helped me bring it together for that final fight scene with the frog. And then actually the sprite, if you play the game, there's really only one angle of the frog bird sprite. So I had this issue of, how can I create, because I'm not an artist by any means. Like, I don't have the design skills that you would need to figure out what it would look like from the front, or what it might look like from below, or at a quarter angle.
Yeah.
So I reached out to Adam from It's a Dog and Game, if you know him, better known as Dog. He's been recently working a lot with Shane Lewis from Rerez.
Oh, cool.
He does a lot of work with that channel. And I reached out to him because I know he did a lot of pixel art on his show, and he was nice enough to put together some angles for me and create the sprites and send those over so that I could manipulate those along with my buddy Ryan Stout to create the insanity that was that fight scene. Yeah, the most editing and hours spent on that episode were that crazy fight scene.
Yeah.
So, out of curiosity about the video, because between Ryan and I think, I'm not going to spoil things, but I think, Clint from LGR made kind of a cameo in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I even had, nobody saw that coming either. It was totally under wraps. I reached out to Clint, and somewhat through mutual friends, he had heard of my channel, and he was nice enough to lay down some lines for sort of the ending reveal. And fingers crossed, if the series continues, he will reprise his role, assuming he's not up to his eyeballs in box PC games and work for his own channel, because he is one of the hardest working dudes on the internet, let me tell you.
Oh my gosh. I'll be honest, and I'm sorry to off topic, but like, when I saw he was having to take that few week break, I'm surprised he didn't have to just take that beforehand.
Oh yeah, I was like, thank God he's taking a break, because he deserves it.
Yeah. He's a hardworking dude. So one thing I wanted to ask is, was Game Dave, like that 10 episode series, was that intended to be a series or a season at first? Because I remember when James sent me some of your stuff and I was watching it, and then it ended and I was like, oh man, that was really good. What's next? And then like it said, like, it was like series finale. I think you changed the title since. I could be mistaken.
No, so it was sort of we'll call it a light troll, a very light trolling.
Okay.
I called it the finale because it was the finale of that season. Yeah, you would kind of call it a season. In a way, it's season 1, and the next Game Dave series is kind of season 0. It's almost like that next Game Dave series is this sort of prelude to that storyline that is on the channel. And the idea is that the next season would sort of explore what was revealed at the end of that series. And I knew to do it the way I want to do it, which is crazy, because I'm crazy, it's going to take time to get the group of people together and the resources to do it in a way that I'd be happy with. Because could I easily just plop myself back down and just keep reviewing games and talk to a shelf? Yes, but I want it to continue to expand and tell, because I've actually sort of developed and written out this world. I've sort of built this world already that exists within that series, and I want to start telling the story of that world that sort of progresses why the shelves are talking to me, why I was chosen for this weird sort of mission, and start bringing in other actors and things to tell that story. It would be pretty intense. I have some ideas for a light season 2 that would involve a lot of green screen work. So we'll see. I don't know. Maybe I've kind of put it in my head that if the channel gets big enough and I have sort of the support and resources to pull it off, that I would just take an entire summer and just put that into this next season.
Yeah. I lost my train of thought, so we'll cut this part out.
So I guess going off of that, the main Game Dave series, which is, by the way, one of the best produced things on YouTube. We've said it countless times before, but you've also had a few.
You're making a girl blush.
But you've also had some really great secondary series. The main one that comes to mind is Famicorner. Is it like, would you say that's a secondary series of that, or more like how would you describe Famicorner, and what kind of inspired that?
So I've always been really interested in Japanese culture and import gaming. It kind of goes all the way back to the early days. I'll tell you, when it comes to internet websites, I've always been a weird early adopter. And just like with YouTube, with eBay, when eBay started coming around, I think I made my eBay account in 2000.
Wow.
So
that's early. Yeah.
That's some early eBay. It was actually so early that I legally could not have a PayPal account. And my parents do not know anything about technology. And they certainly didn't know anything about it back when I lived with them. So I kind of, fudged the numbers. Don't come after me, PayPal, about my age so that I could use eBay. And one of the first things I was looking into was the missing Final Fantasy games. Because as you guys know, for us in America, North America, it went Final Fantasy 1, then we jumped to Final Fantasy 2 and 3 on the Super Nintendo, and then it went 7. I was like, wait, hold on. What is happening? Because I didn't read very many gaming magazines back then. So I didn't know that there was these games that were missing until sort of Anthology on PlayStation 1 came out, and found out that, 2 and 3 are not 2 and 3. They're technically 4 and 6. And then I'm like, well, where's 5? So now we're missing 2 and 3. We're missing 5. So I sort of went on this weird journey of finding 3. And, we did eventually get 3 here on the DS with the sort of 3D remake. But that's, I don't think we've ever gotten an actual release of the original Famicom title for 3. Because Origins came out, that only had 1 and 2. So I imported Final Fantasy 2 and 3 on the Famicom. That was one of the first things that I imported. No way I could play them because I don't speak Japanese. So it was I'm just fumbling through some Japanese kid's game save where he's got maxed out levels and everything. I'm like, this is so cool. But I couldn't really play it aside from the translations that we eventually did get when they ported the games to the PlayStation. And then, we've since gotten so many ports of 4, 5, and 6. 5 actually ended up being one of my favorite Final Fantasy games of the old school era, and it's one that I never could have played until we got Anthology on the PlayStation 1. So that was sort of the first thing I imported, and I've always had it in the back of my mind that there's got to be other games we didn't get, and of course everyone knows the Famicom now, and I was like, I want to focus completely on the Famicom and just look at Famicom games, and because the NES, let's be honest, the NES was the stomping grounds for most of what is retro gaming on YouTube. A lot of people focused on the NES to the point where it's almost cliche to do an NES review. And my mind is, the Famicom it's the Japanese NES. It doesn't feel cliche, but it is the same era of gaming. I want to go through and look and explore some of these games that we didn't get that are really weird because Japan, and also awesome because there's a lot of great ones. And there's definitely some stinkers out there as well, but that's sort of where the Famicorner series happened. I was at Too Many Games several years back with Corey and Try from My Life in Gaming, and Try and I were walking the floor, and I was looking at imports, and I was trying to come up with a show around import gaming, and I told him, I was like, I think I want to focus on the Famicom. And he's like, yeah, you should just do it. I mean, for those of you who know Try, he's a Southern belle. And he's like, you should go for it, do it. And I'm like, yeah, it'd be like, maybe I'll shoot it in the corner, and I'll call it the import corner, haha. And then I was like, wait, I'll just call it Famicorner because it's about Famicom. And Try's like, do it! You gotta do it! So I got back home, and I started planning out the first couple episodes, and here we are. Famicorner lives.
That's awesome. 2 quick questions. Well, one quick, one maybe not so quick. First question was, do you ever have any plans for a Super Family Corner? That one just popped into my head.
Oh, yeah, I do get asked that a lot, and I do have quite an array of Super Famicom games that are super awesome that don't get talked about.
Awesome.
Yes.
Nice.
I actually, Ryan Stout, my FX boy, he and I talked a little bit about a Super Family Corner intro. He actually made a test intro for that eventual series. It's just that weird thing of, I don't want to forget about the Famicom because there's so many games that I still haven't gotten a chance to talk about. So I've always put it in my mind, like, maybe when I get to 25 episodes, then I'll do some Super Family Corners and kind of jump back and forth between the two series. But it is absolutely on my mind and something I will do one day.
Cool. And my second question kind of goes back to how I had felt when I finished watching season 1 of Game Dave proper. When I finished, I was like, okay, so is that it? And then I sort of went through your channel and browsed, and at the time, I don't know what it was, but I think I missed the Family Corner stuff, and you had a series on PSVR stuff. So it looks like it's a bit dormant at the time of this recording. I don't know if you're planning on bringing it back or anything, but how did that work out for you? Because I know, like I have a PSVR. I'm a PSVR owner, enthusiast, and I was like, oh, VR, that's a risky one to go for. Like, that was my first response, because I have a few friends who have done VR content, and it's a hard niche to get into because there's not much of a niche there for videos.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, another good friend of the channel, old Jonathan Millennium, Happy Console Gamer, we talk all the time, and I told him, I was like, dude, I love this freaking PSVR. I'm obsessed with VR. Anytime I have a chance to play it, that's what I want to play in my free time. And he warned me, he's like, if you're going to do anything on VR, just keep in mind, you'll be getting some low view counts, because just for some reason, VR is just not content that people are looking for unless it is like a dedicated, everyday VR news sort of focused channel. It's very difficult to get an audience on board if that's not the main thing you do. And he was, I would say he was right to an extent, but I told him, I was like, I'm doing it because I want to talk about these games, because it's just so, I want people to experience it, and PSVR seems to be the best starting point for people who want to get into virtual reality. I did pick up a Vive. I have a Vive system, and I've still not hooked it up and set it up, because the PSVR is just the ease of just hopping right into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable, and you try to explain it to people, and they're like, oh yeah, they just think it's a screen on your head, and it's not a screen on your head.
Yeah.
Once you get in there, everything just washes away. You suspend disbelief. It doesn't matter what the graphics look like, because after 5 or 10 minutes, your mind puts you there, and it's like, I'm in this freaking game right now. What is happening? No, and it's such a unique gaming experience, and it's what I've always dreamt of from the days of the Virtual Boy's disappointment and me thinking that's what that was going to be. It's crazy, and I would love to do more content with my new schedule that I sort of did this summer, where I'm, putting out 2 videos a week and streaming twice a week, and it's very difficult because I knew I wanted to show the gameplay, but I also wanted to show me and the gameplay. So there was a lot of footage that went into putting the PSVR reviews together. I'm not done with VR. It's just finding the time to get back in there, and there's so many games that are available. People think that there's not a lot of stuff, but there are so many good VR titles. Like, I probably have 120 PSVR games on my PS4 right now, and because anytime there's a sale on PSN, the VR games get like crazy slashed in price. So I'm like, I just gobble them up. And I'm like, oh, this looks crappy. Better buy it. So I just get everything. And it's, and even the crappy, like, $2 experiences on PSVR are still worth it. So it's crazy. I haven't completely abandoned it. Let's just call it a break. Let's call it a break.
Of course, yeah. And I was even going to say, like, I'm the same way with buying VR games. It's kind of a problem because I haven't hooked mine up in a few months. So I just have all these games sitting there. But I'll get through those one day. I think my theory with VR content, and I've talked about this a lot with a few buddies, My theory is that VR owners don't really care to check it out because they'll just buy the games because they already have a VR, so they're enthusiasts like you or I.
Yep.
And then the general audience sees what looks to be like a crappy PS3 game.
Yeah, they don't get it. They don't get it.
Yeah, you can't get it on a flat screen, and until YouTube finds a way to record, or I mean, until you can even record something in VR, let alone, play it on a VR system, not just, wrapped slightly.
Right.
There's no way to adequately show it off other than to put it on and try it yourself, and it's not really conducive to YouTube.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I've seen the people who did enjoy the PSVR videos that I did. Some of them were people who don't own PSVR, but they're people who have tried VR, and those people who get it, love the videos because like, oh no, I know what he's experiencing. This is fun to see. And there are some people that have reached out to me and said, "You got me to buy a PSVR," because there have been some really good bundle sales recently. And it's definitely the time to jump in. And there's been announcements that there might be a 2.0 PSVR set down the road, maybe some new Move controllers. So it's not dead. It's not dead yet.
Well, and PSVR is the most successful by far in terms of overall sales. I mean, I think they're crossing over 2 million sales.
Yeah, that install base is
that's
crazy.
Essentially that's half the Wii U pretty much. So I love my Wii U, but
same.
Yeah.
Oh, so sad though.
But anyway, with that question out of the way, I wanted to jump back a little bit because you mentioned that one editing process, again, of that final episode took almost the whole summer. And you've mentioned summer a few times. So tell us about like your day job outside of YouTube.
Yeah, so when I announced the summer schedule at the 1st of June, because I was like, you know what, this summer I'm going crazy, I'm going all in. And everybody's like, he must be a teacher. I feel like he's a teacher because he's ramping it up in the summer, and that's exactly right. So I am a teacher by trade. That's how I make money to eat so that I have the energy to play PSVR. but I love teaching, but I also hate teaching because it is one of the hardest jobs I've ever had. And I worked at Wawa, so I know what a hard job is. but yeah, it's tough. I would love to do this stuff full time. It's obviously my passion: entertaining people, putting smiles on people's faces, interacting with people, going to conventions and doing panels. I love that stuff. I eat it up. And teaching, I kind of got into because in my mind I was like, oh, I'm going to go to film school. And we've sort of gotten to the point where you don't have to go to film school to get into entertainment anymore. And so I kind of stopped that. My parents were very much of the mindset of, no, you got to get a state job. You got to get a state job after school. So you need to go to school for a state job. I was like, okay. So I thought about teaching. I really had some teachers that influenced me a lot and got me into acting and theater. So I was like, maybe I should teach. It's almost like performing every day for kids. And it is very exhausting. But yeah, for my day job, I teach elementary school. And it's a job.
So on that front, and it's funny, once I found out you were a teacher, I'm pretty sure I found out at Too Many Games this year at your panel. Mm-hmm. My buddy actually spoke to you afterwards because he's just about, like, he's in his last semester of student teaching, and then he's going to be a teacher. Mm-hmm. So he became a fan once he was like, there's a teacher on YouTube? So that was cool. But I'm curious, like, what your workflow is like during the school year, if there is one, because that's got to be rough. I mean, lesson plans, following whatever the state wants to do, assuming, I don't know how Delaware
teaching is brutal.
It's
brutal's a good term. That's a good term. It's very difficult. I'm very efficient with the work that I need to do. I'm not. I've gotten to the point where I'm not one of those teachers that has to stay at the school till 9 o'clock at night, and I totally applaud the teachers that do. I'm very good with my time so that I can somewhat leave work at work, because I don't like that sort of overlay, because it makes it very hard when, as you guys know, YouTube is more than a full-time job. Yeah, it's something, because mentally, even if you're like, oh, I got my video posted for the day, I'm done for the night, I can go to dinner, hang out, it's on your mind 24. You're always thinking about it, and it's so hard to turn off and not think about. Oh, maybe I'll post on Twitter about something. Maybe I'll post an Instagram photo. Maybe I'll. It's so hard to disconnect, which is why people like Clint have to take breaks, because if you don't, you get so consumed with it that you're not really. I mean, you're living, but you're not living in the, I hate to say it, but real world. I feel like YouTube is a real world, but at the same time,
it's a different world.
It's
almost.
a different world.
You're constantly, would you say, digitally distracted?
Oh,
Hey.
Oh, got him. Got him with the slogan. I like it. And you can check that out on iTunes shortly. Subtle references. I like it. I like the plugs. I'm going to let you shamelessly self-promote me. Then I don't have to.
That's the way to go.
Then I don't have to do it. But yeah, you have to disconnect sometimes. And when I'm teaching, I'll sit there on a break. I'm like, all right, I got a 15-minute break. And let me just see how the views are doing on the video. You just want to check. You're always hooked in, and that's why during the school year I have tried my best to post at least 2 things a month, and that alone is very difficult because I go to work Monday through Friday. I get home in the afternoon, and by the time I've eaten dinner and maybe set up the camera and set up the lights and I've got my script written, I'm starting shooting at 8:30 at night. I got to get up at 6:30 in the morning to go back to work. It's very difficult. And I, as a teacher, I have those summers, and I get out a little bit earlier than a 9 to 5er. I don't know. It must be insane for someone who works a 9 to 5 job year round to even pull off a YouTube channel that has any semblance of consistency.
Yeah, I mean, you said it. On all fronts, you said it, really. I know I've gotten in the doghouse once or twice for checking view counts and replying to comments and whatnot. So,
oh yeah,
that's part of the job.
Quote, unquote, you have to be connected. You have to be connected and yet not connected all the time.
Yeah, especially like with YouTube, and a lot of people feel this way. It's tough because you don't really see the fruits of your labor. You don't see the people laughing at your jokes. You don't see, outside of when you go to conventions, when you get people come up and say, "Oh man, like I love that thing. You made me laugh so hard. I spit milk out my nose." Whatever.
Yeah, it makes it so concrete. That's why I love. Hey, any conventions I haven't been to that are listening, please invite me. Because I love going to conventions because it makes it real.
Yeah.
It keeps it from being, oh, these people are just numbers, because I hate feeling that way and thinking that way. And it's so easy to get caught up in, oh, this got 6,000 views, but this got 50,000 views, must be a better video. No, not at all. Not at all. It's because those 50,000 people might have been lukewarmly entertained, but those 6,000 people that watched your other video might have been all in, like dead hardcore about how fun that video was. And I love hearing from people in person what they like the best on the channel, or what stood out to them. And Too Many Games was the first convention I've been to since Digitally Distracted launched on the channel, and it was awesome to hear people say how much they loved Digitally Distracted, because it was sort of a, it was very different from what I've done, and doing this sort of basically a video cast version of a podcast, I was a little nervous because it's so casual. It's completely unscripted. It's off the cuff, and people like it, and it's awesome to make that concrete with interacting with real people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad you dove into that, because I was actually going to touch on the podcast in a little bit. But first, I had 2 other short questions.
Sure.
One, how many people at work have found out about your channel, if any?
Well, so at the very beginning, I never talked about YouTube when I first got the job. I actually got my current position shortly before I started the Game Dave channel. So they almost kind of go hand in hand. A lot of things happened that year, and it all kind of culminated with me launching Game Dave shortly after I got this job. And I think it was discovered by the phys ed teacher at our school. I think he found it because good old Facebook, because there is a Facebook Game Dave page, and it's just that weird thing of, you might like this page, classic Facebook recommendations.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it spread very quickly, so it's sort of known amongst the staff that I do it. But very few of them, I think, watch it. I don't work with a lot of gamers by any means. So it's sort of a different world for them. And, I do get into some of the more obscure things. And I can't imagine that the art teacher is interested in the Famicom. So that's the good thing, is that they're not like, saw your video yesterday, Mr. Thomas. That doesn't really happen. The younger crowd that does sort of pay attention to YouTube, they kind of watch some of my stuff here and there, but it's not really a big discussion. It's not weird. What is weird is when the kids started to find me. And, obviously I never intend for the kids to find out about it, though luckily my channel is relatively 80s PG, we could say. Oh, it's a hard PG, that's what I like to say. Innuendo, classic 80s innuendo, that's how I run. And so it's not like a big fear if they find me, it's just I don't want to have to talk about it in front of the class.
Yeah.
And I remember the first student that found me, he raised his hand. I teach computer class, by the way. I'm the related arts teacher for computers. So I see all the kids. And he sort of raised his hand and called me over. We were doing like an independent assignment. And he's like, Mr. Thomas, are you the Game Dave? And I was like, what? What? He's like, yeah, I saw you playing Mario Kart 8. I'm like, oh, that's right. That video did well. And naturally, the Wii U was kind of a big deal to kids, at least.
Yeah.
So they were looking up games like that, the original Mario Kart 8, and he had come across it, and that's usually what happens. Is the Nintendo stuff is where the kids would find me, and they're like, Mr. Thomas is a YouTuber, and to them, young kids think YouTube is like this awesome, huge, like celebrity-ridden thing. You and I know the deep, dark secret of what YouTube really is. But they just see it as like, there's kids, like I do a PowerPoint project where I ask the students to make a PowerPoint about careers that they would be interested in when they go to college. And it's getting, every year, more and more kids put YouTuber or I want to be famous. And I'm like, oh, they don't get it. They don't see that that's not what it's about. You don't want to be on YouTube just to be a YouTuber. And it's almost a word that bothers me at times, where it's like, if somebody asks me, well, what do you do? If I did this full time and it was my main job and people asked me, what do you do for a living? I wouldn't say I'm a YouTuber. I would probably say, oh, I make online media content, just because, YouTube is just the platform, Like if you have a podcast and it happens to be on Stitcher and somebody's like, oh, what do you do for a living? You're not going to say, oh, I'm on Stitcher. That'd be weird to say. You'd say, no, I have a podcast or I have a show. And these kids, they see YouTube as it's this direct line to fame, and it's kind of scary. Have a passion for something, and if YouTube is the outlet for you to share that passion, awesome. That's great. But see it as the outlets. Just see it as a platform. Don't see YouTube as the career, It's just something that should be a support structure for the creativity and the things that you want to create and share with an audience,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Actually, when you mentioned like what do you do, that part that reminded me of when I first met my girlfriend. She was like, oh, what are some of your hobbies? And I was like, I shoot videos. And she thought I meant porn. So,
dude, the exact same thing happened to me before. Oh my gosh! So before YouTube, in high school, I was making movies on, at that point, high 8 tape. I moved up from VHS because I'm a bit older than the general YouTubers might be, and so I was making movies with my buddies on high 8 tape, and you go to a new class, and a lot of times they'll do the icebreakers. All right, everybody, say your name and one thing that is your hobby. And I used to say, not thinking, I'm Dave, and I'm an amateur filmmaker. Whoops.
Oh,
Whoops. Don't say amateur filmmaker because everybody's like, oh.
Yeah.
So I was probably seen as like this skeevy 16-year-old in high school. I was like, no, I make fight scene movies with my buddies in their backyard. That's what I meant to say, but I'm not going to say that. That's even sounds worse.
Well,
yeah.
and that's,
oh man.
That's like when I said I shoot videos, and then she was like, "Oh, you meant like YouTube videos?" I was like, "Yeah, I figured that sounded worse." So
Actually,
now we know it doesn't.
yeah,
I know I'm off topic again, but I know I've told Bolt the story of how I ordered a new futon back in January, and my spare bedroom at my house is my studio. So the delivery guy comes in with the futon. He sees the camera set up, and I've been and granted, keep in mind, I had like some Mario posters on the wall and whatnot. He's like, "So, are you like filming porn in here or something?"
Oh god. Well, you gotta have a futon to finish the set.
I mean, YouTube is kind of screw you a lot. So
Oh,
Boom. There's that
The witty
hard
jokes
PG.
here.
There's that hard PG.
yeah, the witty jokes here on the NewTubers podcast.
The wittiest podcast you'll ever hear.
So, one thing I wanted to dive into, since we've kind of gotten over the breadth of your channel and your history on the platform, what would you say like some of your biggest lessons learned, some of your biggest successes, maybe your biggest shortcomings, video wise, performance wise, anything like that, like just advice for the creators out
Yeah,
there.
let's talk about all the things I suck at. So for starters, I would say the biggest thing for me that I guess held me back, but in a way, my original channel that I was just sort of doing random stuff with, it was never in my mind that I was trying to create a YouTube career at that time, because it was at the point where monetization was not this widespread thing. The partnership thing was very new, so I wasn't really thinking in that mindset. But when I started to focus more on that channel, the biggest thing that I wish I had learned earlier was focus on what you have a passion for early on instead of the randomness, and focus became so important because once I focused and honed in onto something specific, like you might have that fear of, oh, I'm going to pigeonhole myself and this is all I can talk about because no one's going to watch if I try to talk about these other things I'm interested in. But the other problem people get into is they pigeonhole themselves into something that works that they don't care about. And that's what happened to me. Like my most popular series on my old channel was a show that I didn't really want to be doing. It was just something I did as a sort of a goof for fun, and it sort of took on this audience, and that's all people wanted. And I was like, well, I'm not passionate about this at all. So what do I do? And then when Game Dave came around, it was like very eye-opening just because the growth was so different. I've had Game Dave as a channel for a much shorter period of time, and it is a much larger thing than I ever could have imagined. So focus is like a big thing that I struggled with. Consistency is something I struggle with, but I like to blame that on the full-time job a little bit. I could have utilized my summers a little bit more intensely in the past years of having the channel, but I think it's a lot of that post-teaching year exhaustion where that first month after summer break starts, you're just recovering from the energy you use teaching every day. So that's a big thing that I've noticed. But getting caught up in the views, I almost, my buddy Noptop, to bring him up again, we used to joke about getting invited to a convention, and when they ask for a panel submission, we make a panel, because a lot of times you'll see panels at gaming conventions that'll say, how to get started on YouTube, or how to be, similar to what you guys are doing, but you're doing it in a much more focused and connected way. And you'll see these panels where like, how to get started on YouTube, or 10 things you need to know before you start a YouTube channel, or how to be successful on YouTube. And Noptop and I are like, we should have a panel at a convention called how to be successful on YouTube with no viewers. Because when you get caught up on the viewership, you'll never be successful because you're caring about the wrong thing. You're caring
Yeah.
about, the numbers, and you're spending all this time on SEO, and I got to get this thumbnail just right. I got to get this clickbaity title just right. And then the content becomes secondary to your goal. And like, have I done titles that are interesting to click on? Of course. Absolutely. Sometimes unintentionally, but the content, I always hope, is there. It's not like you click on a title that's interesting on my channel and then you watch like, wow, what a crappy video. This is so poorly made. I want people to watch, but you got to be careful about focusing so much on the numbers. And like I've said, when you go to a convention and you turn those numbers into people, that's like the most important thing. And I think the best thing you can do is network. If networking with other people, and I'm not saying direct message all these big YouTubers that you like and say, hey, can you retweet my newest video? Can you share my channel? Can you share my channel? Because those people are going to see you as you just want something for nothing,
Yeah.
And that's a tricky thing. Or you'll see this a lot on Twitter because you can tag people in posts. So a lot of times somebody will post a video and they'll tag like 40 big YouTubers, and in their mind they're like, oh, if just one big YouTuber would retweet my tweet, I'll get all those subscribers. And the big lesson there is it won't matter. Just because somebody with a huge following on Twitter retweets one of your video posts, it doesn't mean you're going to blow up overnight. In fact, I don't think it'll make any difference, really. When I started out, one of my earlier videos got retweeted by somebody, and it got like 1 like, because people follow that person on Twitter for their stuff, So
Yeah.
I don't know where I'm going at this point. I've rambled. But to answer your question, hopefully I answered your question with some of those things about the positives and negatives. There are a lot of negatives that you have to sort of machete your way through to being an online creator of whatever you do, whether it's music or podcasting or creating video content or live streaming. And I think the biggest thing to cut away is that focus on the numbers. And I'll see it a lot where, especially on Twitter, with new channels who might have and it's good to have goals. It's good to say, I would like to get to 1,000 subscribers. And that's an okay goal to have, but don't put everything into that number, because there's so many channels out there that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers that get, 800 views.
Yeah.
And that's something my buddy NopTop has dealt with, where he has a channel with over 50,000 subscribers, and he gets about 1,000 to 3,000 views per video, because he's had his channel a long time. He wasn't very consistent. He never really knew what he wanted to do. He knows he has his passions, but I don't think his passions really come through in his videos all the time. And I think people see that, and it gets difficult where you've built this audience over 8 years, but your audience is all over the place,
Yeah, absolutely. Especially with the age of a channel a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Like you said, if you take like a short or a long break, it can kill channels.
Absolutely.
And that's not to scare anybody away for the listeners or the viewers on YouTube or anything.
It's just real.
Reminder.
It's just real,
Yeah.
It's a thing that can happen. And there are channels that sort of step outside that rule. I mean, probably the best example would be JonTron, where he'll take these insane 6-month breaks and post a video and it blows up. And it's almost like he's the opposite end of the spectrum, where he's so infrequent that people sit around and wait, and it's like this big deal every time he does post. It's almost like secretly that's what he's doing. That'd be kind of funny.
When I've heard, even there are some creators, this is sort of on the same topic, where they've gotten to the size where if they post more, it actually hurts them, because there's a shorter gap between videos, and that means that fewer people watch and like check in, and they get the notification or what have you. And I don't know that JonTron's in that same crew necessarily, because he takes 1 year gaps and just doesn't show up and everything.
Right. Yeah, I totally get what you're saying, though, because I've thought about that too, because when I was putting together this schedule, I was trying to figure out sort of a sweet spot, because as much as I hate to think about the searches and the SEO and the days that you post, sometimes you have to do it. If I'm trying to make this something I could do full time, I gotta eat.
Yeah.
So I do have to think about how well things are getting out there and how many people are getting a chance to see what I'm creating. And, that whole thing of, oh, if you post every day, your channel's going to blow up. I implore the new people out there to try that for a month, and you will see it is not the easy answer. Everybody's like, oh man, if I could just post a video every day, I would blow up. No. No, because it will fall on that content. It's going to fall on what you're making, and if you're engaging people and engaging yourself in what you're creating, because people can tell a phony is on the internet. Like, they'll pick up on the phoniness or the insincerity of what you're talking about very quickly, and they'll shut off. And as people get older, I think the YouTube audience, a lot of times we think YouTube is just a bunch of kids. Like, the biggest audiences are a lot of kids. And there are a lot of young, teenage kids on YouTube. But there's people who've been on YouTube a while who are older. They may not be their voices might not be as loud as the young kids, because they might be a little bit more mature and they might think before they comment a little bit differently. But they're there, and I know for me, it is hard to take the time and watch YouTube videos. And there's a lot of channels I like, and I find myself where I'll have a Google Chrome browser that's just full of preloaded YouTube tabs of, like, I've got 40 YouTube videos to watch. I'm like, when am I going to have time to sit down and watch all these? And when you have a channel that you follow that's posting every other day, it gets to the point where it's almost like a video game, where it's so overwhelming that you give up on it. It's like, I have too many things to do in this game. I'm just going to play a different game because I'll never catch up. And I think that can cause channels to die, where they've posted so much content so regularly. They're bombarding you with archived live streams. Like, I post my live streams, but they're unlisted and they're on a public playlist. So when I live stream, it doesn't pop up in your feed every day. Because I know for me, I'd be like, wait, I got all this stuff to watch. What is all this? I'm going to start ignoring this channel because it's too much. And I think you have to consider that as well. You don't want to throw so much. It's that, and not to say that just because you have quantity, the quality will go down. Some people can put out quality stuff regularly, but there's a reason that the TV series model has worked for so many years of getting 24 episodes in a year. Like, we like to make fun of TV. TV ain't keeping up with the times, but it's a format that has worked just in the sense of their consistency. And if you figure 24 episodes a year, that's a video every other week.
Yeah. To dive into a couple things, there's a lot I wrote down while you were talking there that I want to unpack. First off, regarding daily content, funny you say that, because James actually just did a month of daily content.
Nearly killed me.
Ooh, I want to know, what was the result?
It was interesting because the thing is, usually I focus on more retro stuff. I like to cover a lot of ROM hacks, a lot of bootlegs. Recently I've been diving into covering like Famicom disk system stuff on occasion, but
ooh, nice.
The main thing for me is that it's easy to do daily if you're doing something like a news video or whatnot. Like, I expected E3 week to be the most difficult. No, if you're covering E3 news, like, you can literally, like, I did a video immediately after Super Mario Party was announced. I was like, hey, new Mario Party, here's what I think that's going to happen. That got 20,000 views.
Oh, congratulations.
But at the same time, I did if you want to go more, it's kind of thing where it's like I did this other video where there's this old-fashioned family-run video store near my house in Canada, and I put a bunch of time and effort into that, and that video I think hasn't even gotten 1,000 views yet.
Yeah,
it's that topical stuff. But what I will say is, based on what you just said, send me the link to that video, because I would much rather get engaged in that video. Because it means something, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
there's more heart.
That's why exactly. And I've never been one to talk about news. Like, newsy topics don't really interest me. It's very rare that I'll talk about news stuff, because And a lot of the successful gaming channels nowadays are doing very, very topical recency bonus type things where, you know, they get that game review out the day that people can buy it because they had it 2 weeks early, or they, Xbox announces the new hardware is going to be shown, and they're like, I gotta get a video out immediately. I gotta be the first one out and then everybody's doing it, and I just don't like those videos. Don't appeal to me, and I am curious. I would love to talk to the fans of those videos, and like, are they sitting there like Mario Party release date or you know, new Xbox hardware details? Because I would think, in my mind, if I look up that information, I usually look at it on an old, you know, a text-based article website.
Yeah.
And not so much, because I feel like a lot of those videos, I mean, I guess people would rather just listen to somebody regurgitate it, which is fine. But I do like Happy Console Gamer, I think, is a good example of doing it well, where he will talk about a news topic, but he has a connection to it. Like, I think he just did a video... when this comes out, it'll be older, but it was about a new Phantasy Star game that's going to be on mobile.
Ooh.
And sort of his disappointment with that, because he's a huge Phantasy Star fan. And, you know, he posted a video about it. It's relevant. What scares me with those types of videos is 2 years from now, there's no reason to watch that video.
Yeah, there's no sort of evergreen to it.
Well, that's what I noticed as well, because, like, the issue of modern content as well is I feel like there's so many channels that not only have more following, but I feel like they can just do it well enough. You know, I feel like, you know, you can only do so many different things with news, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, I remember when I first found Happy Console Gamer, for example, it's like, you know, who else is talking about Ys, for example? Did a review of Ys 8, by the way. Love that game. But
yeah, and he does it well. He does it well.
Yeah. But yeah, with daily content, it was interesting watching James like talk about his experiment as he went through it, because I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, you started in April, just about. Like, you started planning for this in April and getting videos ready ahead of time.
Yes.
Sponsored by that car that just sped past. I don't know if you guys heard that, but whatever. And it was interesting watching, like, because something would come out with news and you'd be like, oh crap, I got to push off that video just to get one more out. And, you know, for views, it seemed to do well for you. I mean, daily content and new stuff obviously gets the views. That's why a lot of people do
Never
it.
again.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was interesting watching, like, your reaction, like the stress of having to do, I got to do this, and this, and, you know, all that sort of stuff. So it can be worthwhile, but it's tough because you kind of lose your passion. I noticed in your case.
Yeah, that's what I've seen with some people that have tried that. And the other thing, it's almost like you're trading. It is a view game for sure when you do the daily videos, and there's sort of, I can see the benefit of you're putting out more things, and there is the benefit of it's more likely if you're putting out 30 videos in a month instead of 4 videos a month, it's more likely that one of those 30 videos is going to hit that sweet spot and it's going to grab people than if you're only putting your, you know, all your eggs into the basket of these 4 videos that month. So there is that benefit. And it's sort of like trading your long-time viewership, talking about that whole evergreen term that we like to throw around as online media people. But you put out and get the views up front, because those videos, you know, they drop, they stagnate very quickly. So you get the views up front, whereas a video that is, you know, a review of something or a look at something more in depth is going to stick around. So it may only have 1,000 views now, but down the road it might start to catch up.
Yeah.
For my channel, the Nintendo machine gun video, which was one of my most popular Family Corner episodes, when that first came out, it didn't blow up, and it took time for people to go back and catch it. And now it's one of my most popular I think it's the most popular Family Corner episode. Because people went back and like, oh my gosh, that's so crazy. It didn't need to get, it didn't need to go viral. You know what I mean? Like viral is great for getting that ad revenue and getting the views up and maybe getting an influx of subscribers a little bit. But those viral videos don't build a community the same way as that slow growth. Like, slow growth communities are so dedicated. And you'll see these channels that blew up very quickly. They have a big subscription base, but you look at the comments and the community is they're not connected to the creator the same way as they are just kind of like talking in the comments. And they're not as dedicated, and not to bring in money into it, but if you look at somebody who has a smaller dedicated fan base and someone who has a huge following, but they're not these hardcore fans, and you look at their Patreon pages, it's funny to see these smaller channels that have very successful Patreon pages and these 100,000, 150,000 subscriber channels that have much smaller Patreon bases.
Yeah, I think that was another thing I was going to jump into, which was, when you go into that news content, when you mentioned you want to ask the viewers, like, not necessarily why they're watching, but, just ask them questions. I'm glad you used the word viewer, because there's a difference between a viewer and a fan.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And it's a huge difference. There's a huge gap between the two, and fans can become viewers, and viewers can become fans, depending on what you do. I mean, I'm sure there's been content I've done that I've lost some fans from it, and they've kind of moved back into, oh, he's doing this now. Okay, and that's just kind of the game you play.
Yeah, there's a lot of those big channels where they have a lot of viewers, and honestly, those viewers probably don't even like the guy or gal that's on camera, but they watch anyway because they just want to keep up with them. It's not that they like them, but so there's like these sort of that negative viewership, and that's when I kind of comes back to talking about the comments. You can see, like, for the most part, I have a very positive audience, a very positive community, and you can see that in the comments. And of course, we all get the negatives every once in a while.
Yeah.
That's expected, but if you compare, you can tell the way that somebody has crafted their content based on the community and how negatively or how quickly they react to somebody, or the way that your audience might defend you in the comments, which is always neat to see. If I get a weird negative comment and like 4 or 5 people get into a reply thing, it's like a gang, the Game Dave gang shows up. I'm like, hey, you shut up, he's not cringy at all. I was like, well, let's be honest, guys, I'm a little cringy. It's okay.
I know that feeling where people are like, what's up with the, like, one guy last week comment video, it's like, what's with the I'm not sure if I can swear, but what's with the ugly ass beard? And I looked, and it was a video from back when I did Movember last year, and I didn't get a beard trim for a month. I was like, you know what, it is an ugly beard. It was hideous.
Yeah,
it's very, I will say, another one of the benefits is you learn to, well, if you look at it the right way, you definitely learn to take criticism a little bit better. Having stuff online for just the public to do what they want with, because once it's out there, it is game on. Like, you're going to learn a lot about how you look. You're going to learn a lot about how your voice sounds to other people. All the things your family won't tell you. The internet is going to tell you, because my mom's not going to be like, hey, Dave, you kind of have like a whiny voice. You ever notice that? Thanks, Ma. Thanks, Ma.
Yeah. I've gotten into the habit of self-roasting just to get it out of the way.
Self-deprecating.
Not even like a mean super self-deprecating kind of way.
Yeah.
Just there's one video which I want to put it out, but I also don't. I kind of want to save it as like a special thing, where I have another character who would just get into a fight with my character. And just start insulting me. The end of the video is just us insulting each other. And it'd just be fun.
Oh, yeah.
Just to get them all out of the way. And it's like, hey, now you can't make fun of it because I did.
That's right. Call it out on yourself before they get you. But yeah, the thick skin, it's nice. You do get to build a bit of a thick skin. Because I know for the longest time, it's that weird thing of, I have a very positive audience, and, if and when I go through the comments every once in a while, and there'll be 100 super positive, nice comments, and then you'll see that one comment, and it might just be like, man, this guy sucks. And that's the only comment you remember. And that sucks that it's so easy for us to hone in on that one comment. It's like, wow, all this, it's like 99% of the comments were on board and got it. And it's like, oh, I didn't get everybody. And you have to learn to accept that and laugh at it. And I mean, as you know from the panel, I kind of went over some of my most negative comments at Too Many Games.
That was fun.
And I would have been nice to actually show the comments on the screen. We had some technical difficulties, classic Too Many Games. But it's funny, I got back to the hotel room, and that PowerPoint loaded up with no issues.
Oh, no.
Crazy. God. Crazy. But we ended up having a nice... It worked out.
Yeah, that was one of the more fun... I'm not saying this because you're here. This was one of the more fun panels that I had been to.
Well, thank you. Yeah, because a lot of times I get... And this is no offense to all of my YouTuber friends and gaming online creator friends that do this, because most of them do. They're just Q&As. They just do Q&As. And that's fine. Yeah. It's okay. Like, especially when it comes to a content creator panel and not somebody who's doing a panel about something specific. A lot of times content creator panels are Q&As. And, my first Too Many Games panel, I was like, I'm not going to do a Q&A. I'm going to go crazy and do all this stuff. Luckily, last year we didn't have any PowerPoint issues. But, yeah, it's just... I try to make it like a show, and, like we're hanging out, and it's not just, all right, ask me questions. And I did a little bit of Q&A, but I always feel like I don't get a lot of questions during the Q&A because I don't have, say, a technical channel. Like, you go to a My Life in Gaming panel, I feel like I'm in, like, a class, where people are like, I got this specific TV model which has this input on it. Which cable would be the best for the proper resolution on this? And I'm just like, oh, what? Well, I don't understand. I just tell Corey and Try what I need to look good, and they tell me what to plug in. I'm very thankful that I have access to Corey and Try 24/7 when I have FrameMeister issues. But not everybody has that. So for them, they do just a Q&A because they get question after question after question. Like, for me, it's more of that, entertainment side of things. And I do get questions about some of the more obscure stuff if I left out some details, and not to sell myself short that I just make goofs about games the whole time, but you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to say, I don't try to talk about myself on these too much, but regarding the negative comments thing, and regarding Too Many Games for that matter, any negative comments I've gotten, which haven't been many in the past month, thankfully, I've started to think about the time at Too Many Games this year, just last month, or now probably 2 months ago at the time that this goes up. I met my first fan at after a panel that I was on.
That's awesome.
Aww.
And mind you, it's just like, with the way the panels are at Too Many Games, you have 10 minutes to get out once you're done.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
the next one starts.
They got to work on those transitions, yeah.
And which is obviously totally fine, but it was like it was my first panel. And I was in this post-panel haze because we were working on the PowerPoint and everything and getting our notes down literally half an hour before. It was, and it turned out fantastically. I was so proud with how it came out, but it was I'm stressed. I'm in this daze, and this guy comes up to me and starts saying hey, I found you through so and so. I just wanted to say I really like your stuff, and I was like, he had said his name and I didn't catch his name at the time, and I'm glad he popped up in the comments when I did the video. But yeah, it was just that will always stick with me.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those first couple people that, it's just that weird. It's okay to feel good about being recognized. It's some people are like, oh yeah, what so douchey to be like, oh yeah, people came up to me and they knew who I was. It's like, screw you. It's cool. It's awesome to meet these people and, like I said, make it real.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my favorite one was at a MagFest several years ago, and it was this I'd say middle-aged woman came up to me, and she was like, "Hi, are you Game Dave?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's me. Well, what's up?" And she's like, "Well, I have my son with me. He was really excited to come to MagFest, and he didn't know you were going to be here because I had not made an announcement video that I was going to be there because I wasn't a guest or anything, and." She was like, yeah, we were walking around the floor and he noticed you, but he was too nervous to come up to you and say hi. And I wanted to say if it was okay if you'd come over and say hi to him. Because I was just like shopping, trying to get my bundadoos, trying to get some deals at the tables. But I was like, oh, absolutely. So, she took me over to him and she told me that he barely said anything. He was probably 8. So I gave him a Game Dave button and we talked a little bit. I talked to his mom mostly because he was kind of shy and nervous. And she told me about how he had been sick. And he's like one of the only kids in his grade that likes retro games because most kids are doing the modern stuff. And for some reason, he just has this really weird connection with retro games for his age. And, I'm one of the channels he watches. And, like, for his birthday, all he wanted was, like, an NES, NES games and an Atari. And I was like, wow. I was like, buddy, you're the one that's going to keep this alive after I am dead, after I am long gone. And then she told me how he had gotten sick and that, he was in the hospital for a while. And she remembered she would hear my voice because he would watch my videos. And I was like, this is insane. I'm like crying everywhere and inside. I had to dry my tears off. But it was so awesome to meet him and his mom and just talk about, like, that thing I said at the beginning of putting a smile on somebody's face. You don't know what's going to do that, whether it's, showing off something they've never heard of before and, like, being like, wow, that's amazing. They made an inflatable bike controller for the Famicom. That's stupid, but hilarious. Then you might smile for that. Or it might be something as simple as, oh, that was funny when Game Dave farted in that video. It might seem stupid at the time, but if you're enjoying it and it's making you happy, at least for the moment the toot comes out, then I'm good with that. And that was amazing. Like that, and that reinstilled in me that I made the right decision keeping my stuff, relatively, clean and for anybody, because I think kids could watch the show. They may not get everything, but they can be entertained, and adults for sure can get a lot out of the videos as well. It doesn't single anybody out,
Yeah. Well, like when I bleep my stuff out, because I don't keep myself totally PG, but I bleep. I'm not like the parents don't care. Like it's just like or the adults don't care rather. They're still gonna watch. The kids, they're more impressionable.
True.
And
it's true.
Not to mention with the way YouTube works, you never know where if you get caught saying the F-bomb, you're demonetized. You never know if that starts happening.
I'll tell you, it was so funny to see, and I'm not going to name any names, but I am thinking of one. But it's so funny to see like a channel that, I've known for a while, and then when that whole demonetization for, how do they refer to it? Rough language? Isn't that what they called it?
I think so,
that's
yeah.
They would demonetize you for rough language, and it was very not specific. This one channel, out of nowhere, like, there were F's dropped for sure, many a fudgery, but they totally stopped any swearing, and I'm like, okay, so, and I can understand maybe changing if it's like, this is your moneymaker, this is your job, but it's interesting to see how your content feels different when you make such a dramatic change like that. It'd be like The Nerd, if The Nerd,
Oh God,
decided, I'm going to go family friendly just for the demon. I mean, he obviously doesn't care, and I don't think he gets demonetized necessarily because, his stuff is probably tagged properly or whatever. But
yeah,
that's a tricky thing. I wasn't sure how I felt about that, where you had somebody who did sort of more angry reviews, and they kind of pulled back. And I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me ask the question. What do you think? Do you think that's okay for somebody to? I think that happened with, I know nothing about it. I am an old man when it comes to Fortnite. But I know with the whole, I've never seen his stuff, but Ninja is like the big guy.
Yeah.
And I know he talked about how he made all of his stuff clean now, family friendly. He doesn't curse on stream. And I mean, I don't know if he did a lot before, if that was really part of who he is as a person, that, that's just how he talks. Because some people just talk like that, and that's totally fine. Like, I don't care. Like, maybe in conversation, I may say swears. Game Dave After Dark, it happens. But but I don't, feel like I need to put that out. It doesn't define me, Like, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think the big thing as well is it's like, I know parents can't always monitor what their kids are watching, but, have an idea of what they're watching, but also, like, some channels like The Nerd, or I know this channel doesn't post anymore, but Alpha Mega Sin, like, if they didn't have language or whatnot, that just kind of it'd take away a huge part of what made their channel so popular, right? You know, it's part of their persona.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty tough for Alpha to stop. Yeah, good old Alpha.
But at the same time, like with a lot of them, like, you know, if we're talking about old video games and, you know, we're focusing either on the entertainment value or, you know, the game itself, you know, there's, for most channels, it's kind of like what we do, we don't need that type of language. In fact, I remember one of the first videos I ever did, and I don't know why I kept it up, was an Animal Crossing retrospective with some friends. And we were swearing like sailors, and my sister actually watches, right? And I have a 4-year-old niece and a 2-year-old nephew, and she was like, this is well edited, but I can't watch it with the kids in the room. So, you know, at that point I was like, well, you know, I feel like maybe some self-censorship is good depending on what type of audience you want to appeal to, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
I think with me personally, the way I had designed my channel was I actually spent 6 months before I made a video just planning out my game plan, like my review structure, my scoring system, everything I do, just to be that one guy who's different, of course, naturally. But I really wanted to make sure that once I started, I didn't have to change much. You know, obviously you'd improve the audio, you'd improve the video, you know, you learn better editing tricks.
Right.
But part of that for me was, you know, I'm going to self-censor because I don't trust, you know, YouTube. If this ever becomes something, you know, that it can be a job or a career path or something, I'm not going to jeopardize that in any way just to be, you know, drop an F-bomb here or there. Now, when I stream, I don't give a damn. Because, like, streaming is totally... I mean, Twitch is much different with that. They're much more lax. And even on YouTube, like, I'm not doing streams on YouTube if I am to make money. I'm doing them for charity or, you know, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And I think, so in my case, it was never a question. I think once that came to be, that, you know, the rough language policy was brought in, I don't blame any channels for changing whatsoever, like you said. I think that there are certain channels, like you said, where their brand requires that sort of swearing. Like, Some Call Me Johnny comes to mind. Not that he swears often, but like
censored mode.
The one where the censored mode, exactly. Like stuff like that. I think it benefits that he had dropped F-bombs and everything throughout every video he'd ever done, because then when he did censored mode, it made for a good joke. But, you know, he's still one of the more family-friendly YouTubers out there, minus the F-bombs.
PG-13.
Yeah, PG-13 is a good way to put it.
Yeah, there you go. I like what you said about, you know, having things feel consistent. And I did the same thing. I mean, obviously, I spent a lot of time prepping mine. I had to build a big set that I was going to be stuck inside of for the and the launch of the show initially.
Yeah.
But that's what I noticed with my original channel. When I was planning Game Dave, I'm looking at this old channel. I was like, man, this thing is all over the place, because I started with just some random videos I made in high school, and it just... There was no consistent sort of aura to the channel. And, you know, I did go to school and do some video production stuff. Like, I have a tech degree in video production. So that's where I kind of, you know, I started with Premiere, learning the original Premiere. Pre-Pro, before they called it Pro. And I think it was like Premiere 5 was the first Adobe Premiere I learned with in school. And so I was able to come into Game Dave with that video production background already, and that helped so that I could kind of, you know that my audio was consistent and clean, and using external audio, and generally using lighting techniques that I learned, and, you know, doing quality footage and things like that. So it's not as hard to go back and watch, you know, my original content from back in the day, the start of the channel in 2013, 2014. But I'll tell you what is hard, though, is to see how much weight I've gained in my face. I will say that's a bit interesting. It's funny, even if you watch Game Dave the series, the actual storyline, because it took so long to do that series. I think it was over the course of maybe a year or so, maybe 2 years. If you watch the first episode and you watch them in order, it's like, man, Game Dave slowly gets fatter by the end of the like. I'm not. No, nobody would say I'm fat, but comparatively, pudgier. I'm more skinny fat in the 10th episode than I was in the first episode.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah.
to absorb the blows of the frog bird as it attacked me, it was all purposeful.
You were bulking up for it.
Yeah, I was just bulking up. I was bulking up
Yeah.
with Dunkin' Donuts and stuffed crust pizza from Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
That's.
Carbo
I think I
loading,
need a new trainer. That's some bad knowledge I'm using.
Yeah. No, I totally feel that. I've noticed when I watch my earlier videos. I mean, there are a few parts where, like, my first video, I obviously still cringe a little bit to the point where I remade that video as a special thing just because I really wanted to. Like, that was the only one where I was, like, not proud of it, even though I still was. But going back from that and being, like, you know, fresh-faced, clean-shaven, and then I think there's a part in that video where it cuts and I have a beard because I didn't think about it and I had to fix something and I was like, screw it, no one will care. But now, like, I have a beard. I've definitely put on a little bit of weight, so in the same exact sort of boat on that one.
I'll tell you, the audience they don't as much notice weight gain. 'Cause I think a lot of times when people do put on some weight, a lot of times they look better. Like, I think I look better now than I did when I started my old channel. Like, I think my old channel I look like a twig, like a very gangly.
Yeah.
Because like I was that. They would say, "Oh, you're so blessed that your metabolism is amazing." It does suck being a super skinny, bony kid in high school that can't put on weight because it's just the
Yeah.
opposite end of the spectrum.
I was the same way, yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's my whole family line. Like my grandfather, when he got out of the Navy, weighed 120 pounds because we're a very skinny family until about 26, 27, and then it's like, all right, you've had your fun. Say hello.
Time to catch up.
Say hello to this belly. beer belly on a skinny guy. It's basically what we're accursed with. But in the comments, you'll notice people who gained or who were larger on online, and then they lose a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And like get in shape. People really comment about that, and sometimes positively, but other times they'll be like, "You look weird now. You look sickly." Like people will say, "Oh, you look sick because you lost weight." Oh, sorry, I got healthy. All of a sudden.
No, I know someone
Yeah.
who was at Boogie2988 just lost a
Yep.
ton of weight.
Oh yeah, because he did the surgery and
Yeah.
everything he did.
Yeah.
He's looking good
Crazy.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he definitely. I mean, he had a lot of weight to go through, so it'd be hard for him to look bad. What would be?
Yeah.
Actually, who was it? I can't remember it, but there was a creator. I think he reviewed movies, and he lost some weight. And people are like, "Wow, you look really gangly and sick." It's like, no, I just started eating better. Is all. Yeah, it's crazy what people will notice, but that's why it's like I said, the things your mom won't tell you, the internet will.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think second congratulations. I think this is the longest we've ever gone on a NewTubers
And
podcast.
it's funny because is all right if I ask one more question, Bolt?
No, yeah, I'm still down to keep going for a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, are you still down, Dave? Or I guess
No, yes, of course I.
Or
Of course
I
I am.
guess-
Yes, I didn't even. I didn't realize how long it's been. It's we all connected very well.
we have.
Yeah, this
we're
was fun.
all family now.
That quick. Don't start talking to me like my mom though.
Oh come on, Dad.
Be real with me.
Yeah, be
real.
honest.
But I guess going another thing because I remember when we first started the call. I was like, "Oh, what's up, Frank?" You've mentioned we've mentioned that of course from a little editing thing in the most recent Game Chasers episode, which you were in. So I guess real quickly, let's talk collaborations.
Okay.
You've done stuff to Game Chasers, Clint from LGR. I remember, I think some of your early Next Game Dave stuff was actually on Gamester81's channel, if I remember that right.
It was actually on the Re-Res channel. at one
Re-Res.
point.
But what's your advice to, I guess, smaller YouTubers about, doing collaborations and also, just kind of, going from just having their own little bubble on YouTube and expanding that and reaching out?
Yeah, that's a really good question because that's actually something I struggle with a lot, and sometimes I worry that people might think I'm rude or that I'm like anti people because I don't. It's not often that I do collabs on my channel, but I'm always. I mean, I try to be available to people if they reach out to do collabs. I've been on My Life in Gaming's channel a couple times. I did a. I was on Happy Console Gamer's April Fool's video that he posted, his top 10 comedic video. I appeared in that one. Of course, I worked with Shane on Re-Res. It's tricky because it's that weird thing of when you have somebody on your channel, it's a totally different thing because you are highlighting this person. And that thing of, I know it's the only, as much as I don't get caught up in thumbnails and SEO and tags and all that stuff that really irritates me, even though it's just a necessary evil for us. The one thing I do think about a lot is branding. And branding in the sense of keeping myself consistent and, that thing of who you hitch your wagon to, Who you hang out with in high school is probably going to influence your peer pressure related decisions,
Yeah.
So for me, like, I saw there were people who were going out and getting their party on and getting drunk in high school, and I was, getting together with my buddies and having Monopoly tournaments in my parents' basement. Things like that. Cool guy stuff, And I think it's the same way online. You gotta, as much as we like to say online relationships are super different, that line continues to blur, and the people you surround yourself with will influence you and could come back to bite you or could come back to be a real benefit of who you make connections with. So I've always been very afraid of, it's like I may know somebody somewhat online as a YouTuber, and then I'm like, yeah, why don't we collaborate and you'll do half of this episode on this review of this game because we both like it, and I want you to be on the channel, and we'll do it together. And then, 6 months down the road, he's a murderer. Whoops.
Yeah.
Well, it was before I knew he was a murderer that we reviewed Bigfoot on the NES. Sorry, I didn't know. But so that thing has always been in the back of my mind. Like, it's kind of a scary thing, which is almost sort of, I'm always up for being on other people's channels, and I'm very bad about reaching out and having people collab on my channel, and it's not anything about being rude. It's just like I have that weird fear of spreading it out, and because then if I have somebody on my channel, I feel like I am, in a way, it's like you're vouching for that person, right?
Yeah.
Is that crazy?
Yeah, that's completely
I
accurate.
get that.
Okay.
And yeah, well, I was gonna say I've taken the same approach in many regards, where it's like, I'll pop on another channel, and then I wait a little bit because it's you want to be safe. So I totally get where you're coming from on that, and even to extend that out to like the NewTubers out there who are watching or listening, there are a lot of larger creators where, if you ask to collaborate with them, they might be interested, but it's a matter of, they need to know you better. They need to know your content better. I'm working on something with a larger creator now, and he's just like, he knows me as a person rather than as a fan.
Mm-hmm.
And even then, it's still like, it's obviously on my channel, not on his channel, because it's a, like you said, a much different step to go out and say, hey, everybody, this is a guy who makes good stuff. I mean, even as we saw with, let's go back to JonTron.
Yeah.
He was the guy who started Normal Boots, and now he's not part of Normal Boots because of things that he said and feels, or felt, So, like I said, I totally get where you're coming from on that, and don't ever think of it as, because I know when I first started, I'll admit this, it was like, you feel that a lot of larger creators don't want to collaborate because it's like, I got mine, deal with it. Like, I've already gotten my success. Like, you find yours and then we'll talk. And it's not really about that as much as it's once you do this for a little bit longer, not that for me 2.5 years is long, obviously, but even running NewTubers and seeing it with everybody there, you realize it's just about, you need to know these people because your brand's on the line too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's more about building, because that's what I've noticed more is that collaborations end up happening with people on accident, and because you build a friendship with people, and then I love when a collaboration sort of happens naturally, and the Game Chasers is a great example of that, because I've known Billy and Jay for a couple years now. We see each other at conventions. They always go to Too Many Games. I see them at Retro World Expo, which is coming up in September, which I will be at. And a lot of times we just hang out. We chat. We sort of get to know each other, whatever. But we're not like, all right, so yeah, let's get together and we'll do a video so we can help our channels. A lot of times collabs happen because you just like somebody and you want to just do something with them because it's fun. And that's what happened with the Game Chasers thing, where Billy and Jay was like, hey, we're going to go to Classic Game Junkie. We want you to come with us. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it ended up becoming an episode, and it was a great time. And
You still there, Dave?
I really enjoyed it. And I got to give a big shout out to good old, I keep bringing him up, Happy Console Gamer, because he sort of gave me this huge boost early on. We met at...
That's fine. I took a note for
I think
when
my
I
second
cut,
Too Many
when
Games.
cut out that
Second
one
Too Many
little
Games
gap
I did.
there,
So this
too.
was way
I'll take a
back.
note
I
for
was
this timestamp, too.
super small channel at the time. And we met at an after party event.
Try leaving
and we
the
just
call
kind of
and
hit it
popping
off
back in.
because we both love JRPGs.
I think it lost you.
And Johnny, I will say, is a very sincere guy. He's not.
I'm not
he's
getting
not
any
that type
even
of person that
input
would
on your
ignore
end.
you because you're a small channel. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of people make that assumption that, oh, they never emailed me back because I'm too small when I asked to collab with them. And it's kind of like goes back to what you said, where
Try going into
they might
your
just
user
not know your
settings
content that
and
well.
go
You know,
into
it
voice and
takes
video, see
time
if
to
it
learn a
dropped your
YouTube channel to
audio
watch
input
their
device to
videos.
something else.
And they also might be super busy, like Clint. You know, it's hard to get back with
I'll
people
pause the
if you've
recording.
got a lot of messages coming in. But we met and we kind of kept in touch, and
That way
we
good.
chatted every once in a while on Skype, and we still do. We probably talk once a week.
This will make the edit a bit
And
more fun for you.
I was at work,
Okay.
and
Yep. I think everything is back to good.
I usually
was-
we didn't
that was Discord
have a
saying,
Verizon
"Hey, you
tower
guys have
near
been
the
going for a
school,
long
so when I
time."
was at school, my phone was dead. I would have no signal.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
So I usually would shut my phone off. So I got in the car,
Upload
and I
our
turned my phone
bandwidth
back
limit.
on. I plugged it in to the charger, and I'm
Okay.
driving.
So I think we're good.
And then my phone starts going crazy. I'm like, what is going on with my phone? I am trying to drive here, sir. And I get home, and I get the phone out, and it was my email notifications on Gmail, and it was like 500 email notifications. So then I went over to my computer and I checked my YouTube channel. Nothing was too crazy aside from the influx of subscribers. And I checked my subscriptions, and I see that Happy Console Gamer had done a shout-out video about Game Dave without telling me. And it was like the ultimate gift. So he blew up my phone, and I immediately called him on Skype. He's like, hey, Dave. I'm like, oh, man. I was like, my phone is blowing up. I was like, that's so sweet of you. And we just talked a little bit. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I've wanted to do it for a while. He's like, your channel is so high quality. And I wanted to do it. And I didn't even want to tell you about it. And I was like, yeah, well, it was a surprise. But that's the thing. We made a connection. He knew I was a good guy. I knew he was a good guy. And it's not like we had ever made anything together. We never collabed on anything. He just took it upon himself to do that. And people will do those types of things for you. But you also have to put yourself out there and not be afraid to get to know people. And I would say going to conventions, talking to some people that aren't in the gaming community, a lot of times they'll say, really, you're going to spend a whole weekend or 3 or 4 days at a convention? Like, you could be making 2 videos and reach tens of thousands of people, but you're going to go to this convention and maybe meet 10 to 20 people. Like, it's not going to grow your channel. But it's more about meeting other people who are in the same sphere as you, and like I've said, also getting to meet those people that watch the show, which is, as you know, awesome feeling.
I would argue it's healthier than doing 1 or 2 videos to go out and meet people and socialize. God forbid.
Yeah. Yeah. And every time I go to a convention, it re-inspires me, and it gives me that energy back, and I'm like, no, I need to keep doing this. Don't give up on this, because it like I said, it makes it real, and that was huge. That was a huge thing in my channel's life. I think that was what pushed me to like 20,000 subscribers, and it happened very
Wow.
quickly.
Yeah, that's awesome. I was gonna say regarding the subscriber email things. It's funny because you mentioned that, because I still save all of mine. Even a couple thousand subscribers later, every time I get an email for someone who has their subs public and they subscribe, I have a special folder for it. I keep it there. I don't care if they unsubscribe after.
Yeah.
It's like, that also makes it a little
Yeah.
real, because it moves beyond the number where I can say, hey, Sonic Fan 07, subscribe to me.
Yeah, I will
whatever.
say I do have it where Gmail will automatically label and archive it. So I am still a little crazy, which is good.
Yeah. I think that's a good crazy, though. And even like you said, regarding collaborations, I mean, James and I met because he just messaged me out of the blue on YouTube's Messenger one
Old
day.
school.
We talked about this. This was like last year, 2 years ago. Yeah.
The Messenger feels
It
old
does,
school now,
especially
doesn't
since
it?
it's gone.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
But yeah, he had messaged me out of the blue, and he was like, "Hey, I liked your video on, I think it was Shrek," and so we worked together on a Shrek video,
I
and
remember
then
it.
we became friends.
Yeah, that's all. I mean, Noptop, that's how I met him, was the early YouTube days. He sent me actually a YouTube message to my inbox and was like, hey, I noticed you seem to put a little bit more effort into your videos than most people on here. And then just over time, we started talking, and then we exchanged phone numbers, and then we started calling each other and getting to know each other. And then he came and visited, and we made videos together, and it just sort of, and now he's one of my closest friends. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, I would say in the same way, a lot of my closest friends now are YouTubers that I've just met through NewTubers, or mainly through NewTubers, really. And we kind of went into that in the last podcast episode, so I won't go too much into it here. But yeah, it's interesting watching your crew shift around a bit,
Yeah.
as it were. One more thing I wanted to touch on before we get into what I'll probably make the last question was another example that I thought of. I'm not going to name names, but regarding being cautious with collaborations and shoutouts, there was a YouTuber who was shouted out maybe a year or two ago, who has grown a decent amount. He's in the 10,000 subscriber range, I think, and he got into a big stink with some of the people that had shouted him out. And I'm trying to be very vague because I don't want to call out a specific situation. But it was one of those things where I saw the original creator, the 100,000 subscriber mark or 200,000 subscribers, whatever it was, say, when I shouted him out, I didn't know that he would, do this, that he would make a stink over a small thing. And it was just, there's a reason people are cautious. And I wanted to reiterate that even with the larger creators, you never know.
Yeah.
So.
And definitely I would say, avoid the silly drama,
Oh,
because there's
absolutely.
just no
God,
there's no time for that junk, and it's everywhere, and you just and I hate to say you need to be on guard, but just be careful, get to know people. I would say definitely get to know people before you're try not to keep it in mind, or delete that thought in the back of your head that, oh, if I get to know this guy and we become friends, he might shout me out and make my channel huge. Because like in my mind, I never thought that just because Johnny and I got along, that he was going to shout me out. Like I had it blew my mind, because he probably saw that when I met him, we were being sincere with each other. We legitimately had a connection, and we got along, and we chatted well, and we befriended each other. And it was real. It wasn't this thing of, oh, well, maybe, I'm going to get to know some people so that I can kind of grow my channel. Because if you go into it with that mindset, people are going to smell what you're stepping in, and they're probably going to avoid you.
Yeah. And that's always in the back of my mind, like you said. I don't delete it. I kind of like hone it a little bit personally, where it's like that's not what I'm going there for. But if it happens, cool.
Right, yeah, because it's certainly, I mean, it's hard to not have it cross your mind, like, oh, I wonder if we might work together on something. But yeah, to make that your hyper focus is not ideal.
Yeah. Like if I'm working with somebody, I want to work with them. It's not for their subscribers because, again, I was speaking with another person I interviewed shortly after the podcast went off, and we were just talking about how it's the attach ratio of people like jumping over from one channel to another has gotten smaller and smaller.
Yes, it is very rare that a shout out will get you. Like that's why John and I were both blown away, but I think it's because he and I have very similar audiences where they're very dedicated, they're very locked in, and they're very positive. So I think that's why he felt like, me shouting out Game Dave makes sense, because he felt like there'd be a lot of audience crossover there, and he was right. Like I've never seen a shout out video be so successful. It blew my mind.
Yeah, we're long past the days of being on DigiKnow Gaming making you, for example.
Right.
But yeah, so I think we'll close with the last question. Because like I said, this has gone very long, but not a bad thing. This has been
You're welcome. No, I'm just kidding.
Regarding streams, because you mentioned that you do stream on Twitch. I saw you stream on Twitch before this podcast.
Yes.
And you also stream a little bit on YouTube. I don't know how frequently comparatively. What have you noticed between the two? That's a question I like to ask for people that stream. Do you find it, in your opinion, for your audience, is it better to focus on diversifying and moving to Twitch? And obviously there's a arguably higher profit margin on Twitch than YouTube. Or do you find that YouTube is better for your audience?
There's definitely more money to be made on Twitch if you get locked in, but I will say it is very difficult to grow on Twitch. Especially right now, because it is, it's growing exponentially. Everybody's moving to Twitch that is into streaming, it feels like. This summer is the first time I've ever streamed on Twitch. I've had a Twitch account for a very long time, but I never streamed there because in my mind I was like, my audience is on YouTube. So when I did do a little test experiment with streaming a while back, I did it on YouTube and it did well. But I do both. I stream during the week on Twitch, and I sort of stream during the day because I am off during the summer. And it's a chance to sort of interact with audiences that aren't in my time zone, Because a lot of times when I do streams in the evenings, a lot of those international viewers are asleep or it's 4 a.m. for them. So I was like, this would be a great opportunity if I stream on Twitch. And I know a lot of international audiences like Twitch. At least I seem to notice a lot more people from the UK showing up on Twitch compared to YouTube. And Twitch is a little more filtered. I don't know if that's the right word, but it's a little more casual. It's a little less intense. Part of that is I have less people watching on Twitch, of course. It's just naturally how it's going to be. But less trolls, maybe? As opposed to a YouTube live stream. I don't know why that would be.
Yeah, I think the community is more positive on Twitch a lot.
Yeah, because it's streaming is that's their bread and butter, so they take it seriously, maybe.
Yeah, and I remember I said this recently to somebody. I remember back when rating was a bad thing. Like, oh no, they got rated. Now it's like, oh, you rated me, thanks, man, and you get a couple followers from it or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. And now they have hosting and all those other things that go in with it, which is... Now, I was a Twitch noob. I knew nothing about Twitch, so that the first couple weeks, I was really stumbling and trying to figure out, it's sort of... the behind the scenes, the way the sausage gets made is the same, because OBS and all that stuff. But the way that the interface works and learning about... I didn't know what bits were. I was like, what's a bit? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And learning about, eventually you can hit the affiliate program and the way that videos archive and how long they stay archived. And learning all of that it took some time. So I do a YouTube stream every Sunday from 7 to 9 p.m. Eastern. And those streams get between 100 and 150 live viewers concurrently. Is it concurrently? I don't know. I keep hearing that word concurrently. Is that how that means? About 150 stayed the whole time? Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Yeah. I did it. Nailed it. Then on Twitch, I get about 20 to 40 people which is still awesome. It was enough to where we hit affiliate pretty quickly. But it's just more, I use Twitch as sort of this casual, just, it's a way to play games that I just want to play, and I don't have to worry about, oh, I got to capture this footage because I got to make a video out of it. It gives me an excuse to feel like I'm working, but not working. Like I can actually just play games I want to play. And a great example would be from last week. I had done a Twitch stream because Gerald and I had shot a few digitally distracted episodes. And I was like, hey, why don't we go to lunch and then come back and we'll do a VR stream on Twitch. So that way I don't die in VR because I can't see. You can keep me from running into things and you can follow the chat while I play PSVR because I had not gone through Super Hot VR yet. And I've been waiting to. And I beat the game on that stream. And I was like, this is all I get to beat a game on stream because it's a game I probably wouldn't review because everybody knows it. But it was a chance to play it and experience it, and it was a super fun stream. We had a really good crowd, and I think that kind of established for me that Twitch is something I want to continue to focus on. So during the week, I sort of Twitch stream. Wednesday is like the go-to day where you can guarantee I'll Twitch stream, and then I just throw in random extra days. Like I streamed Monday, Tuesday, and today on Twitch this week. And I might stream on Friday as well. Who knows? Leo Laserfrog, who played the shelves on the Game Dave series, he and I have been going through and playing the old Neverwinter Nights, a classic Western RPG based on Dungeons and Dragons. So that we've been going through. And I mean, as long as he's on board, we're going to see how far we can get in Neverwinter Nights on Twitch.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you guys can watch that in the past. Because they'll probably be done by the time this airs.
I don't know. We've been dying a lot because I forget to save. So we might still be going.
You never know.
And they'll be archived, so you can always watch them later.
The one other thing I wanted to ask regarding streams is, with your YouTube streams, have you noticed any effect that the streams have had on your audience or your consistent viewership on videos or anything like that?
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to gauge because it's such a different way that at least it appears to be a different way that the views are tallied upon your channel overall. But I like that now when it archives, it gives like a view count based on the viewers that popped in during the stream, which is nice. So at the end of a stream, there may only be 150 people that are still watching when you close out the stream, but when it posts, it'll say, 1,400 views, which is, I assume, based on the number of people that came in and out, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
And then that video can continue to grow if you, archive it. Mine's a little harder to find, like I said, because they're all unlisted and archived, but they're on a public playlist. So if you did want to catch up on the stream, you'd have to go to the channel and go to that playlist. But at least it's there. Yeah. They're not lost to time. And I kind of like, I have a very digital hoarding mindset when it comes to media. Like I have every piece of raw footage for any video I've ever made on the channel. Just hard drives just being destroyed and crushed into diamonds because they're so full. But I'm a pack rat when it comes to any footage. So like I record through OBS the streams to my hard drive, and then I also have the archives online so that if for any reason I wanted that footage, I have it, which is, just that archival mindset. I think that comes with being like a vintage game collector. It's just that weird thing if you don't want to lose anything.
You want to preserve it.
No, yeah, I totally feel that.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the unlisted playlists. That's a unique way. I haven't seen many people go about it. Yeah,
because I've heard people before where it's like, oh, he's just live streaming again, because they'll think, oh, new video, and then they get disappointed that it's just an archive of his live stream.
And that's exactly why I asked how it's affected your viewership, if at all.
Yeah, it's actually gotten the overall analytics. Aside from just, it's hard to gauge because I started it when I started this twice a week schedule, but it appears to help because obviously the viewership goes towards, your overall channel views. And then there's that thing of retention and, some people hang out on there. So it probably makes the watch time look more intense because every Sunday, I'm live for 2 hours. So it obviously, to YouTube, makes the channel look active. I'm assuming, I know not what the algorithm wills, but I assume that it's beneficial to the channel. And plus, they probably want to compete with Twitch, so streaming, I'm sure, is seen as a positive thing for your channel.
Yeah, that's exactly why watch time is as valued as it is on streams. I mean, watch time's always valued on YouTube, obviously, but like the algorithm is intentionally, I would argue, skewed towards pushing streams because they want to fight Twitch for market share.
Right.
So, yeah. The reason I had asked beyond that is with a lot of smaller creators, and in my own case, I've noticed that when you stream to YouTube, it can sometimes split your audience, and it can hurt. So for NewTubers, I'm always, when they say, "Oh, I'm streaming to YouTube," I'm always like, "Does it fit your channel?" Yeah. Like so when I would stream, somebody said to me that they liked my streams on YouTube more than they did on Twitch at first because they're the same content, but it was that very analytical, I give you fun trivia that I know about the game, in addition to me memeing all over and everything.
Sorry to meme on your face.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's interesting watching different channels and their responses to like streaming and their audience responses to streaming on Twitch versus YouTube and all that.
I see Twitch as sort of the bonus. It's not 100% of my focus, but it is sort of a thing. And if the Twitch grows, that's great. It is, like you said, a way to diversify and have more options, because if Twitch continues to be the dominating streaming service, I mean, Amazon owns it. So, and Amazon will soon be our glorious and fearless leaders.
Overlords. Yeah.
It makes sense to, jump on. And I would say don't go to Twitch if you're just doing it because you want, the views or whatever. If it's not your focus, don't. But if streaming is a major focus for you in general, I would say you should be doing it on both platforms, because Twitch is the premier sort of stream service. You should be on there if streaming is something that's important to you. For me, the reason I'm doing Twitch is because it is more casual. Because I will say 100 to 150 live viewers on YouTube might not seem like a lot, but it is very difficult to keep up with a chat that has even just 100 people in it, because, I mean, you're getting, and it's funny, YouTube will track how many messages per minute you're getting as you're streaming, and it's very difficult to, make sure the stream is running well, make sure you're playing the game, and also sort of focusing on the chat. It's very stressful, and I'm exhausted after YouTube. Twitch, it's a little more, it's a kind of relaxing, it's fun. I have maybe 20 to 30 people. I get to, I recognize people in the chat. It's nice. It's nice. I mean, eventually, ideally, I would want that to grow, and it will get out of hand one of these days if I continue with it, but that's where moderators come in and try to help, and the whole alerts and things like that. And
you'll get used to coping with, not reading the chat as much necessarily.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. I feel so crappy. I feel like a hot piece of garbage when I don't respond to somebody who asks me a question in the chat, and it's like it's already gone. I'm like, oh, I missed it. I'm sorry, I didn't. It's that thing of I got to realize that sometimes a streaming chat is there to hang out with the chat, not necessarily get me to respond to everything. And I've gotten a little bit better with that thanks to Leo being on stream with me during Neverwinter, because I'm sort of conversating with him and we're focused on the game. And then every once in a while we pop into the chat, and it's going to take some time, but on YouTube I've been, I'm like intense in the chat. This is how bad it is. Here's the secret. Again, you're going to find out how another sausage gets made. It's a terrible saying, but I love it. I now on YouTube, I don't watch the proper output of the game. So when I stream on YouTube, I am actually watching the OBS screen with the chat over the gameplay. So if you ever watch one of my streams, you'll notice sometimes I'll slide the chair to like check, like, what's my HP? Oh, okay, sorry, I couldn't see it. It was behind the chat. So that way I can see it right in front of my face. So I'm seeing what you're seeing, and that's why I can point to things very specific in the chat. But, it has caused me to misselect items before because it was covered by the chat.
Yeah.
But that's why people are like, man, how do you how do you interact with the chat so much while you're playing the game? It's like, because it's in my face.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're playing chat,
Yeah, I'm
not
a little,
the game.
whew, yeah, I gotta,
Yeah.
luckily I'm playing Project Octopath, so it's turn-based. It makes it a little easier, but when I start playing some action
Yeah.
stuff, whew, chat, you're gonna have to deal with that.
Yeah, I with Octopath too, it's not that bad because I have a stream delay, so like because I use my Halpog, so there's a 3 second delay.
Oh, right.
And so there's like now I'm actually also streaming Octopath, so
Smart man.
Good game. So I've been trying to watch chat, and it's easier with that game, but it's like if I were playing like I don't know Call of Duty, I would never stream Call of Duty, but if I was. I would never be able to.
Yeah,
read
I
chat.
played Burnout Paradise
no.
for one of my YouTube streams.
Oh, God.
And oh my gosh, if anybody was
Don't text and
if
drive.
anybody was paying attention to the gameplay, I accomplished nothing. I didn't start. I literally just drove around and crashed on ramps for 2 hours because I was so the chat. I was so focused on the chat and I didn't start any missions. I didn't do a single mission
my
the
God.
entire 2 hours. It's literally just me driving around. Repainting my cars, switching to the Ecto 1 in the DeLorean and driving around. And at the very, very end, I played a multiplayer game. And then I closed it out. It was whew,
That's
rough.
yeah. Like I said, don't text
Yeah,
and drive.
exactly.
Oh God, that's awesome. But yeah, I think that's about where we should probably call it because I think we're nearing our 2-hour
looks
mark
like it,
on
yeah.
this stream. Ooh. So, thank you so much for hanging out as long as you did. This was
no
awesome.
problem
This
at all.
was-
Seriously.
This was one of probably the most fun I think I've had on one of the NewTubers podcasts. yet.
Mission
Don't tell 'em.
Yeah.
accomplished.
Yeah.
This has been awesome.
But yeah, if you want to, plug yourself in any way, all the links will be in the show notes or in the description down if you're on YouTube or anything. So go ahead and plug away.
All right, I guess the easiest way would be GameDave.com, which will take you straight to the YouTube channel. Or pretty much if you Google Game Dave, it will come up in some respect. But yeah, twitch.tv/GameDave. So I'm Game Dave there as well. And Facebook.com/GameDave. It's pretty much Game Dave everywhere, except for, I believe, Twitter, which is Next Game Dave is my Twitter handle. But you can, I hang out on Twitter a lot. And of course, YouTube and Twitch were sort of my go-tos, but I hope you'll hang out a little bit if you didn't get too annoyed by our 2-hour conversation.
Yeah, like I said, this has been really fun. Thank you again for coming on, and for you that are all still hanging out and listening, all 3 of you, thank you for listening. Let us know what you think down in the comments. If you have any questions, I will try and pass them on to Dave and see if I can get an answer to give back to you in the comments. But yeah, with that, take care.
Thanks for listening to the NewTubers Podcast. Come back every 2 weeks for more tips, tricks, and advice on starting, building, and sustaining your YouTube career. Visit us on reddit.com/r/NewTubers or on YouTube. See you next time.